Hello and welcome back to the Puncher's Chance podcast with myself, Sam Hill, and as always I'm joined by
Tovey
and
Ben Thomas.
And in today's episode we're going to be looking at the fights from last weekend with Ohara Davies versus Ismael Barroso, looking at some audio clips from the world of boxing, talking about Jarrell Miller and previewing next weekend's fights. But before we get into all of that, Harry, how was your weekend?
It was good, yeah. Big upset on the weekend, Ohara Davies.
True.
I did the preview and I didn't see that happening, so I look like a bit of a mug now, don't I?
Doesn't matter. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, a quiet one for me. I didn't watch the fight actually, but it was easy to catch up on with it only being a first round stoppage. So
yeah, I mean we can jump pretty much straight into it. It's hard to talk about a fight that lasted all of a couple minutes for any more than a couple minutes, but how first of all, how much of a surprise is it going into the fight, and how much of a sort of a big shot was it from Barroso to end the fight?
Massive shock. To be honest, Ohara Davies is just coming off a loss to Lewis Ritson, win over Lewis Ritson, sorry, not loss. And Ismael Barroso came into this fight, back-to-back fights in Vegas, and he lost to Roland Romero.
Yeah, Rolly Romero, yeah. So
that's a big name. You know, Ryan Garcia's got him in his mouth as well, but yeah, I didn't see this coming. And if you're going for shocks of 2024, I think this might be up when we come to the end of it and we talk about it later in the year.
Yeah, I think he was just caught with such a big shot, and you could see as soon as he got up from our first one, his eyes were just...
He didn't recover.
He didn't know where he was at, and I think it was right to stop it. As harsh as it is, you weren't expecting him to lose it, but if you get caught with one of them shots, sometimes you're just not going to recover, and I think it was right to stop the fight there.
Yeah, I think you see stoppages in boxing where you think, that was frustrating, or that maybe shouldn't have been stopped. He looked like he was fine. But this one, as soon as that lead hook landed, it looked like the fight was over. It was kind of like, oh shit, yeah, he's gone down here. He's not going to get back up from that. He was wobbling. And it was, probably a pretty good stoppage. I mean, we say as well, though, that, Barroso, he's one of those fighters. He's fought a lot in his career, and inevitably had a handful of losses in there against some reasonably big names. But he does seem like a fighter that has an upset in him at any time, really. I mean, he's got a bizarre style. He's quite sort of squat and stuff, but he seems to, I think, obviously lost to Rolly Romero, who's a, like you say, a big name. And do you see him, maybe getting some bigger fights in the future, or do you think he's just one of those, those older guys that's almost like a gatekeeper for the top of the division, where they go, we'll stick him in with him. Once he beats him, then he can get his big fight.
Yeah, I don't know whether they try and set the rematch up now just for Ohara Davies to sort of get the revenge of it before carrying on. He needs to rebuild now. It's obviously a shock loss, but yeah, I could possibly see a rematch, and then he goes on to probably try and fight Romero, or could fight your favourite fighter, Ryan Garcia. So I think he's ranked.
How long have we gone into this podcast before mentioning Ryan Garcia? Bloody hell.
Is there a podcast been by that we haven't mentioned Ryan Garcia yet? I don't know if
There's two fighters that we always talk about,
and we're talking about both of them today, aren't we? Our two favourite fighters. Ben, you need to come up with someone that you have a vehement hatred for that we can constantly have a go at.
Tyson Fury, probably.
Big Ben Thomas.
No, I don't want to start calling out Tyson Fury in case we ever run into him. He's a bit too big for me.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of big fighters and heavy fighters that I wouldn't want to get in a scrap with, we can move on to looking at some of the audio clips, starting off with Callum Smith and Beterbiev, which is happening this weekend. Is it in Quebec in Canada, is it?
Yeah.
Obviously, so Callum Smith, this is a clip of Callum Smith talking about Beterbiev and how and in what way he thinks he can beat him.
Obviously, I'm not going to go in there swinging, and that's my only way of winning. I believe I can outbox him. I think other fighters have been outboxing him or beating him at the time of the stoppage. Again, like I said, he's not invincible. He doesn't go in and whitewash everyone. He does lose rounds, and he is there to beat. And I've seen two fighters, put him down as a professional. So when you see other fighters do it, it definitely gives me the belief that I can. I know I'll land right, and I know I'll land clean, and I know we'll have an effect on him.
So obviously that's a pretty sort of harsh take on Beterbiev, who is obviously a champ and a great fighter. And do you think maybe this is something we brandish a lot of big punch fighters with, this idea of they could lose fights, but when they don't lose fights, he's 19-0. Do you think Callum Smith, without going into too much detail on the preview, because we'll preview it at the end, but do you think that's fair that Callum Smith thinks, oh yeah, I can beat him because he's lost rounds, or does he need to take him a bit more seriously as a 19-0 fighter?
He has to take him seriously, and he's obviously got. You don't go 19-0 with 19 KO wins and not have punch power behind you. So he definitely, I think, he was honest with himself in saying that the only way he's going to win here is probably on points. I don't think he outfights him, but I think going into it, he needs to avoid. Beterbiev is very good at sort of sticking someone in a corner and landing so many shots, so it just slows you down, and then he finishes you off at the end. But he needs to outbox him to win on the weekend, I think.
Yeah, when I was looking at this fight, I found something interesting. Neither man has gone the distance in 175-pound fight. So if you thinking both men are going to stand there and try and box, I reckon we could see a big knockout here. And another fun fact, if you want another fun fact, Beterbiev, when I was reading again, has beaten Alexander Usyk.
Has he? At amateur level? Or?
At amateur level, yeah. You look shocked there,
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Fair
with a body shot. So, again, it's more evident there that Alexander Usyk has got a weak body. But yeah, Callum Smith's only defeat has come at the hands of Saul Canelo Alvarez, and he lasted 12 rounds with. So, you got to give it to him. But yeah, since that defeat, Canelo has gone on to become undisputed super middleweight champion, and Mundo has made success moving up to light heavyweight, where he has stopped 2 opponents within 4 rounds. So
it's impressive stuff, particularly for someone who's moved up in weight. I do worry slightly with just how big a guy Beterbiev is. That as you're moving up in weight, that might be a difficult sort of challenge to deal with. But when you've only lost to Canelo in your career, you can kind of go, well, I'm basically unbeaten. There's certain fighters you look at on people's records and you can kind of go, yeah, that's fair enough. Like, you lost to Canelo. Hasn't pretty much everyone except Bivol. Near enough.
Yeah, but, Beterbiev, he's been out the ring now for, 17 months? He's only fought 6 rounds over 37 months. So, a bit of ring rust could be a problem. His last fight against Anthony Yard, back at the start of last year, was it? I can't remember.
We were looking at that, but I was shocked to see Callum Smith hasn't fought since August 2022.
Yeah, he's averaging 1 fight per year since 2020. So
it's not as if he's got a lot more rounds on Beterbiev. Beterbiev is 38, and time does catch up with you eventually. But it's not as if either man have been in fighting a lot over the last few years.
Yeah, so obviously we'll go into some more detail and make some predictions at the end of the podcast. But for the next audio clip, it's looking at Joseph Parker talking on the possible fight with Zhilei Zhang, which may or may not be made in the near future.
Your reaction to that fight?
He's back. He's back. They told me.
He's back.
He's back. So that wasn't the right audio clip. I don't know what's happened there. So what I will do...
We need to find a new director of this podcast.
Yeah, shocking job. What I'll do instead is I will tell you what Parker said, which is that a fight had already been organised and agreed between Zhang and Parker prior to the Day of Reckoning, and that obviously that fight happened first. And so Parker thinks it'd be a pretty easy fight to make, and seem to sort of hint that that's a fight he'd want to make. Is that a fight you'd want to see, or maybe do you want to see Parker fight someone like AJ, or maybe Wilder fight someone like Zhang? There's a lot of names being thrown around there. What fight would you like to see between either Parker and Zhang and other fighters?
It has to be Parker and Zhang, don't it? That's a very good fight. Both men came into 2023 undefeated and went out of 2023 undefeated, so I think that's the fight to make. But they're talking about making Wilder against Zhang on the undercard of AJ and Ngannou. That's not even a competitive fight, in my opinion, after seeing how slow and Wilder was against Parker a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, Parker Zhang for me, I would like to see.
Yeah, I'm probably the same. I think with the heavyweights at the moment, it's an interesting time. I think 2024 is going to be busy for heavyweights. There's so many potential matchups you could put in. You could probably put Parker in with Dubois as well, possibly after his performance. Or there is a lot you can go towards, but I think Zhang and Parker looks like the logical next step.
I think when you're talking about Dubois, I think Dubois this year needs to be looking to avenge a couple of his losses from previous years, and Joe Joyce is probably that one name that he wants to get that victory back over, and we've seen Joe Joyce now last year losing twice to Zhang, so I think for Dubois, if he wants to make that next step up, Ajit Kayabel, we saw him with a massive upset on the day of reckoning, so there's another big fight to be made, and yeah,
Kayabel's pushed himself right into the mix with his performance on Day of Reckoning. Probably the most impressive on the night, so he's another one that's a potential. So there's plenty of different heavyweight fights you could have over the next 12 months.
Especially with the Saudi Arabia back in. You know, we're going to see some big fights.
Makes it even easier then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it'd be a shame not to see Parker in the ring against some big names. I think he's earned himself the right. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was a fairly unanimous agreement from us in our 2023 review that he was one of the top fighters of the year.
Yeah.
With the victories he got, was it 4 fights he had in the year, and obviously 1 or 4 of them finishing in big style against Wilder. And I understand that the heavyweight division likes to still. They like old names that have been about, and Wilder will sell pay-per-views obviously because he's a big name. But after that loss to Parker, I'm thinking, you know, that ship has sailed, really. I don't necessarily want to see him fight
he has
anyone.
To rebuild now, don't he?
So yeah, it would be a shame that Parker gets overlooked against Zhang just for the sake of money. But we will see. And then moving on, speaking more on heavyweight, and you've touched on it as well already. Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou in Saudi Arabia. I think it's March 9th.
Our business trip.
10th. Yeah, you know, we're looking at possibly a hefty business expense to get out there. I think it was a 14-hour flight with like 2 stops or something.
Not bad.
For like 214 quid or whatever. We'll make it work. See what happens.
Is that a guess?
But is that a fight you guys are like excited to see, or are you slightly disappointed that AJ's fighting Ngannou? What's your thoughts on the whole thing?
Me and Ben were talking about it before we came up here, and yeah, it's a fight that I'm really excited to see because, you know, we've seen what Ngannou can do now, and we can see we got the old AJ back now, and I think it's just going to mix and make an unbelievable fight.
Yeah, it's just going to be 2 big hitters. It's what you want to see in heavyweight boxing. I think after Ngannou, he was a bit of an unknown, obviously, in terms of boxing against Tyson Fury. I think caught Tyson Fury on a very bad night, made himself look good, and has pushed himself right up in sort of the rankings of the heavyweights. But I think AJ will take him seriously, have a bit more of an understanding of what sort of level he's at. I think he might suit AJ a bit more in terms of he's gonna want to stand there and maybe trade with him. I think AJ with his technical boxing should pick him off a bit more with the power punches. So I can see AJ winning here, but it's going to be a good fight to watch.
I also think we're talking about an AJ that's come off the back of, you know, a big win against Otto Wallin and is fit and is fighting regularly. It was not a fit Tyson Fury we saw in the ring versus Francis Ngannou.
No.
It was a Tyson Fury, I think, that overlooked his opponent and didn't train anywhere near as much as he should, and paid the price for it with a pretty hefty shot. The only thing is, you know, obviously we're sort of, I guess we're looking at Joshua fighting possibly Fury towards the end of next year is maybe what we're gearing up towards, depending on what happens with Fury and Usyk. Is this sort of a stopover fight just to keep him active in the meantime? And if it is there a risk attached to that? Because Ngannou, if nothing else, can bloody hit you and you could cause some damage. And is it maybe too much of a risk to take while you're looking for maybe the fight of your career, and possibly some are saying the fight of all time if Fury beats Usyk and AJ gets in the ring with him?
Yes, it's obviously always going to be a risk. I think no matter who you get in there with is a risk. But he's obviously going to make a lot of money out of it, which is a personal point for him is good. And I think he might have something in the back of his mind of if he can dominate Ngannou, or at least make it look impressive, he's got that over Fury to set up that fight. He could, if he goes and stops Ngannou, he can turn to Fury and say, I done what you couldn't do. Even though it probably wasn't Fury's best night, he's still got something over him to hold over him to get that fight that he wants in the future. So
I think we see a lot of AJ this year, like we did last year. I think he fights Ngannou start of March, and then summertime, a big stadium event in, well, could be back in Saudi Arabia for all we know, but, you know, the winner of Zhang and Parker, or Zhang and Wilder, maybe. Who knows what's going to happen there, and then obviously Fury at the end of the year. But you two are saying you want to see that big fight with Fury, so are you thinking now that Fury's going to be beating Usyk quite easily then?
No, I don't.
No?
I just think I don't.
You still think they make that fight for no world titles then?
I don't think it needs titles to make our fight. It'd
Okay.
be the biggest fight in British boxing, possibly, even without titles.
The biggest fight in British boxing that doesn't happen in Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
that'd
mad
be-
is that?
Hopefully
Yeah,
it does
would be a
happen in
shame.
Britain, but I don't think it's no coincidence that you're seeing the best of AJ now when he's gone back to being more consistent with the amount of fights he's having. Like, it'd be his 4th fight in 12 months or whatever.
Unbelievable.
I think being active and constantly fighting, which I think is a bit harder for the heavyweights because they're in such grueling fights sometimes, but being active all the time, that's what's bringing the best out of him, and I think that's what has cost Fury maybe over the last few years, is not being as active and not challenging himself as much as he probably should have.
I think Fury's just let himself go with the fights because he wants as much money as possible.
Yeah,
You know, he was trying to say he wants 500 million for the AJ fight. Won't let anyone. No one has to pay pay-per-view for it. No one has to pay for tickets. And then Eddie Hearn came out and said, "How the hell are you meant to do a show and pay him $500 million?" You know,
His
it's-
Excellency will make it work. Some
I
way,
was
one
thinking-
way or another.
I was thinking about this when I was watching the Day of Reckoning. You know, we grew up playing some UFC games and all, and we were putting the big names against one another. He's playing his video game, but he's doing it in real
He's
life.
got the money to pull it off.
It's unbelievable, you know.
It was like with the Saudi League, they were saying everyone he's playing real life Football Manager. He's just like,
It's incredible.
fair enough.
I
I
know.
respect it.
As long if they keep on making these big events, then fair enough. I have nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But
I think the only thing is if we do get Fury Joshua, I think it'd just be wasted not to have a British crowd there.
yeah,
The atmosphere of that would be hard to be topped, and as good as the cards are out there, there's one thing money can't buy, and that's atmosphere.
Yeah, they were talking about that on Talk Sport last week about the atmosphere at the AJ fight. And Frank Warren was saying that he was there and they were cheering and all, but watching it on the TV,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
couldn't-
really hear anything.
The early fights on the telly, and I know it's the early and the preliminary fights, and they don't tend to, people don't fill the stadium until a bit later. But that atmosphere was non-existent for the first 3-4 fights. Probably the Zorro fight.
Even that fight, I
even
didn't even
the-
think many people turned out.
It
for
weren't
shy
even
of
full.
times.
Like,
No,
if you were over here, if you had that card over here, everyone would be in there before
100%.
any fighters even walked out. It'd be packed for the whole night.
It would be like a social media fight night, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, everyone would be there because every name that's on that card's a big name. But yeah, that's something that they probably need to work on, the Saudis, is trying to get more people in there and trying to build an atmosphere. But
I think they're more they obviously had Cristiano Ronaldo ringside, Conor McGregor. I think they're more focused on just being the place for the stars instead of. I don't think they're worried about atmosphere. I think they're just more focused on look at what we can put on.
showing off.
I mean, God, that was funny though. All the memes of Ronaldo and Conor McGregor and McGregor.
Yeah.
Just such a pain in the ass to he was annoying me, and I wasn't even sat next to him.
Imagine being sat next to him for all that night. I bet Ronaldo had hell of an hangover the next day.
But that was probably a sober Conor McGregor as well. So imagine,
I don't know. You never know. I think maybe this is a good time to move on to our first audio clip, which is still about the Joshua and Ngannou fight.
It's not going to be Eddie Hearn again. Now,
It's not Eddie Hearn.
He's
This one.
back. He's back.
It's Joshua talking about Francis Ngannou with Laura Woods prior to the Day of Reckoning card, and he had some pretty high praise about Ngannou and didn't really seem like necessarily the kind of guy that he was looking to fight. Let's say.
And a nice guy. Have you met him yet?
Nah, I haven't.
Would you like to meet him other than fighting him?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to Cameroon.
Yeah.
To the sand mines where he was
Where he
digging and
worked
stuff.
as a kid,
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to see
10
it,
years old.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What would happen in a fight between you, though?
War.
Yeah.
First man to land is going out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be rough, wouldn't it?
Battle of the bodybuilders.
Imagine. Wow.
Tyson Fury can stay at home.
Yeah, so obviously, it was quite a sort of fight night, concentrated AJ, but he obviously had some nice words to say about Ngannou. Do you think that they'll still both go in there and want to rip each other's heads off, or do you think there will be an element of sort of exhibition fight to it where AJ will be thinking, I'll beat him, and Ngannou's thinking, I'm gonna rip his head off because that that's what he needs to do to make his name in the heavyweight division if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, I think it's just they're both natural fighters, and I think once they get in that ring, they can just flick a switch and they know a job needs to be done, and them two go. I think Joshua knows it's a potential risk because he's already seen it. You've seen it with him dropping Fury. He has got that power behind him, and he's gonna want to go in there proving that he can handle being in there with the top heavyweights, because looking at it dropping out of the UFC, people at the time when he dropped out were giving him a lot of stick for it, with him saying he's going to cross over to boxing, and but he's a really likeable guy as well. He seems really humble, down to earth, and he's done well for himself. He stepped over his first fight, he's dropped the heavyweight king pretty much, and then he's got Joshua in his second fight. Like, no heavyweight in history is going to have first two fights like that ever again, so you've got to give it to him.
What a story he's got as well, Ngannou,
Yeah.
AJ just talked about it there in Cameroon in the sand mines.
Well, have you seen, so when the same year that AJ won his gold medal at Olympics, which I can't remember, 2012 was the London Olympics, wasn't it? Yeah. Was the year Ngannou left Cameroon to make a life for himself, and he was homeless at the time. And you look, fast forward, 12 years later, and they're fighting for many, many millions. And yeah, like you say, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Like I do not begrudge Ngannou at all. The way he handled himself in the build up to the Fury fight, the Fury saying beforehand that it's time to go to school, and him after the fight saying, well, you're not a very good teacher then.
And dancing over him, yeah.
It's the perfect balance between fun and respectful. I think boxing slowly over the last sort of 10 years particularly has lost a lot of the sort of once respect it had. It was always a thing of, you talk the most before and during the fight, and then the second that bell goes, it's just like everything's forgotten. It's just two men who went to war. And I think we're slowly losing that, but I think Ngannou does still have that sort of attitude about him where it's like after the fight, no matter what happens, Fury, he should have probably won, but he wasn't there going, I should have won. He's a bum, he's a fake. He was just like, yeah, fair enough. We went to war and it was a good fight.
I think that's what I like about AJ as well. He respects his opponents beforehand, but obviously we've seen a bit of a different AJ over the past 12 months and I like it. I think the less respect you show to your opponent, I think the more he's going to do something. So I think it's going to be an interesting build-up to that fight. Was it March the 9th?
That's what it's rumoured for. It's not 100% confirmed.
Joshua put on his Instagram, but it's March the 8th.
March the 8th.
That'll be on a Friday night.
Friday night.
Apparently.
So we could have even cheaper flights then.
Yeah, on the Thursday.
I don't know why they're trying to put it on a Friday, but
I think in the Middle East, their weekends are Friday and Saturday. Because when WWE go, back in the day, they used to do it on Saturday instead of Sunday when they used to do. I think that's why.
Possibly, I'm not sure, but yeah, it will certainly be an interesting matchup. And I won't play the last audio clip because we've heard the first 5 seconds of it, and we've heard too much of Eddie Hearn over the last.
He's back.
But yeah, he basically says that AJ's back and that he's the best heavyweight in the world right now, and everyone, is looking at AJ. And I think to a degree, I don't necessarily agree he's the best heavyweight in the world yet, because I don't think he's proved that. But is everyone looking at AJ? Is he the fight to make at the moment? I mean, we've got Parker, people are saying he should fight. Zhang, people are saying he should fight. Ngannou, people are saying he should fight. They want to see him fight Usyk again. They want to see him fight Fury. I mean, at the moment is all pathways in the heavyweight division leading through AJ, really.
I reckon it is.
Yeah, I think it went from after he lost the 2 fights to Usyk, I think people, including myself, I think thought that was the time where it was going to be a drop-off period for him, but after the last few months he's had, he found his aggression again and is the best version of himself, I think, and now, like you said, everyone wants to try and get a fight made with him. And I think once the Usyk-Fury fight is out of the way, if Fury gets the win, or Usyk gets the win, either fight is there for him. Either he goes and looks to finally get that win over Usyk, which will still be difficult because I think Usyk is just a hard matchup for Joshua, or you get that.
But not Fury.
I think Joshua's got a better chance of beating Fury than he does Usyk.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, because I think what you get, so AJ, generally speaking, outboxes his opponents because he's a better boxer than a lot of heavyweights. He moves well for a heavyweight, he throws good combinations for a heavyweight, he varies his shots well for a heavyweight, and probably one of the few heavyweights that does that better than him is Usyk. So the problem is that then AJ can't beat Usyk at his own game, so then he's trying to be a better bully than Usyk, but that's not what AJ does. So I think, that whole go back to like styles make fights, that kind of plays true there. Whereas with Fury, I think AJ outboxes Fury, but Fury does obviously have the size on him. So then you get that mismatch of, which one will come out better, Fury's size and Fury's ability to use his body well, or AJ's, combination throwing and things like that.
I reckon come the end of 2024, we'll probably have... we would see by the end of 2024, we would see the rematch between Fury and Usyk. We'll have AJ against Parker or Zhang, because I think, forget about putting Parker and Zhang on an undercard of one of these fights. That's a main event in itself, pay-per-view worthy. Weatherspoon's worthy for you, but let's be honest. 2024 is probably the year of heavyweight boxing, and we haven't said that for the past 5 years, maybe?
It's probably longer than that, really. I don't think we've ever, maybe not even in our lifetime, ever had like a heavyweight scene where it's been like so many different options, so many different potential fights, and every fight could be massive.
Yeah, it's like for me, in recent history, obviously, the sort of peak of heavyweight boxing was Wilder Fury, and at that time it was Wilder Fury was the big fights, and Usyk wasn't necessarily considered the top heavyweight that he is now. He was obviously a brilliant cruiserweight, and AJ was fighting Ruiz and losing fights like that, or fighting, I think it was Klitschko before that.
Even before that, AJ's been running the heavyweight division as well. When Fury decided to, did he give up, or was he retired?
He retired.
Inverted commas. AJ, who's he fought? He's fought Parker, Takam, Povetkin, Pulev, Usyk, Ruiz Jr. in that twice as well. There's some big names, and I think for you guys, I've been brought into boxing because of AJ, and I still think he's probably one of the best heavyweights on the planet, and I'd have him in my top 2.
Yeah,
Usyk, AJ. No, sorry, Fury, AJ. I don't know why I said Usyk then.
Freudian slip there.
I'm a fraud.
Also, interesting, you mentioned the Weatherspoons. I've actually, Fabrizio Romano, here we go, signed up for DAZN for at least another month because I phoned up the guy to cancel, and he was like, why did you get it? And I was like, to watch the Day of Reckoning. And I run a podcast, so and he was like, what's the podcast name? I got him to get it up on Spotify. He gave it a listen.
Oh wow!
And he gave me it for $6.99 a month. So we're still on. I've wangled it.
Hang on a minute. I'm ringing up bloody DAZN now when I get home.
Yeah, so I don't know how I've managed that, but I've got it free. I've got it for $6.99 for the next year.
For the next year?
Yeah, so I can cancel it any time I like as well.
So
shout out to, I didn't take his name.
How much are you paying, Ben? 20 quid?
No, I don't think it's how much.
$9.99?
I don't know. I signed up for it.
I've signed up with it with my mother's email to get the $9.99 deal. I'm going to cancel that. Well, I can't even cancel it now.
No, so ring them up to cancel it and they'll offer you a better deal.
Okay.
There you go. Sorry DAZN for costing you
okay.
costing you money on live on air, but
no more Weatherspoons for us then.
Not for the time being anyway. And he was bigging it up about the sort of upcoming fights that I might want to watch. Using that as a segue, but a fight that I don't want to watch is anything to do with Jarrell Miller. We've obviously seen recently that Jarrell Miller was arrested in well, it said in Hollywood, but apparently this is Hollywood, Florida, which I didn't know was a place.
Florida.
But of course it happened in Florida. And he was arrested for assaulting a car dealership employee. Allegedly, he got him in a headlock, threw him to the ground, and then stole a car.
Oh my god.
So without getting into those too many details about that, because I don't know the whole truth, and I will put an allegedly on all of that.
Are we allowed to talk about this? You know?
Yeah.
What I think we are allowed to talk about is whether or not Jarrell Miller should continue to be given a platform in boxing, or whether this is the last straw, or as I think Harry's made it pretty clear,
That's it.
about 3 too many straws.
He shouldn't even have been on the day of reckoning, but there we go.
Do we need to stop platforming and making room for people in the scene where they don't necessarily belong for things like this? I mean, we talked about the drugs, the performance enhancing drugs use, and Conor Benn, and how people are still trying to get the Ben Eubank fight on, despite there being issues there. Does boxing need to stop doing that, or will it always be money first, and so these fights will continue to be made?
He's a clown, and he really he's just come off probably
That's going to be at the start of the podcast now.
biggest payday of his life. After having how many chances, he got slapped about by Dubois when he was running his mouth beforehand, and now he's gone and done that. It's like, and like we've said, there's so many.
He's done so
potential
much
fights.
more as well in the past.
Yeah,
as well.
there's so many different fights you can make out there with heavyweight boxing now. Heavyweight boxing doesn't need Jarrell Miller anymore.
The only fight that could be made that has Miller's name in it is Derek Chisora against Jarrell Miller.
Or AJ, just because AJ.
AJ. Why again? Why give him the time of the day?
Yeah, that's the only thing. You don't want to give him that platform again. It'd just be nice to see AJ just flatten him, and hopefully.
Do you reckon he got paid well, Miller, on the day
Yeah,
of reckoning?
I don't
Do you reckon when you have the tier of all the fighters, do you reckon he got paid quite down low to the ground?
I don't think you fight on our card and all get paid a decent amount.
Yeah, I think he probably got paid pretty handily, but evidently
He didn't.
There was probably a winning bonus that Dubois had got, and a stoppage bonus that Dubois had got that Miller was maybe hoping for or pre-spent in his head. So he decided that, do you know what, I'll have the car anyway. Which is just madness. Allegedly.
Yeah.
He wanted that. I don't know any details. I'm not.
Have you seen the picture of him in prison as well? No,
I've got it up here on my screen, and he looks like one tough bastard.
Oh, I've got one as well. He looks so sad, and you're thinking, mate, you've just earned yourself a couple 100,000. I reckon £1 million probably.
That would go down the drain on legal fees, wouldn't it?
It's just a waste, isn't it? You got that potential to earn that money.
Look at that, handcuffed up. This man 3 weeks ago, before Christmas, was fighting and potentially fighting for his boxing career. Now he's going to be fighting people to stay alive in a prison cell.
He got daddied by Daniel Dubois,
and he's going to get daddied in prison probably.
To be fair,
Allegedly.
wherever prison he's in, I don't think many people are going to step up to want to fight him if he's a
No,
I wouldn't.
heavyweight.
I think Harry's the only person I know that said he would fight Jarrell Miller.
Well, he was saying to Eddie N that when you're in New York next, I'll get people to jump you. I was walking around New York a couple of weeks ago, like looking around, turning my shoulder.
I think with a couple rounds of steroids, so it's a fair fight.
Don't even need steroids, me. No, give me a couple of McDonald's. Let me bulk up even
a
more.
load of scrambled eggs.
Load of scrambled Conor Benn.
Conor Benn special.
Yeah, a load of scrambled eggs on.
Scrambled.
That'll do the trick. So I suppose what we should move on to next is looking ahead to the weekend's fights with which headlining with Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith. Or in the meantime, we could take some more cheap shots at boxers while we're here. We've got Ryan Garcia refusing to fight Devin Haney. Says he wants Rolly Romero, but I think Rolly Romero doesn't want him.
He wants Barroso now, don't he, Romero?
Yeah, they all just seem to be trying to avoid each other at the minute. They're all calling each other out, but also no one's willing to.
Ryan Garcia is a professional boxer, but he acts like he's a YouTube boxer, don't he?
He does a bit. He does have that sort of.
And I don't think that's very professional, is it?
No.
We've got, what was it, this massive Misfits card coming up end of January, is it? January 20th.
It's 14 days. Is it 12 days? I
Something
saw
like that.
someone was.
Something like that. We'll have to do a preview for that because
For
there's
sure.
some decent fights on there. Logan Paul's fighting on there. Not
he?
Logan
Oh,
Paul.
not Logan
Not
Paul. Yeah,
Logan
yeah.
Paul.
Some
Yeah.
guy called not Logan Paul.
That's
Oh,
how they've
right.
advertised
I
it.
was confused. there.
That's how they've
I thought
So was I
advertised
for
it.
a second.
Yeah. You lot, you're right.
No, so Ryan Garcia said he's going to fight in the UK. So obviously
He won't be allowed in.
Eddie Hearn's picked up my message. We're getting that one worked out. Obviously, you guys saw over Christmas. I was back in the gym. I was in training.
Meanwhile, me and Ben were drinking our way with our beers and Christmas puddings and everything.
Yeah,
I
the
was
2
just-
weeks off.
I had
Yeah.
scrambled eggs every day.
Me and Ben are back to training today, though. So
Oh, of course.
me and him are tag teaming against Jerome Miller.
I still don't think you do it. I don't think the two of you beat Jerome
I
Miller.
don't- I don't
I don't think all three of us beat Jerome Miller
Have you ever
together.
seen that boxer who fought Ajit Kabaya? I think the massive guy from America, and the referee brought him together, told him the last instructions, told him to walk back to the corner. The bell went, and the guy just walked out the ring.
No, oh,
That
no.
would be me and Ben. That would
I
be me
have
and
seen
Ben.
that. I have seen that clip. Yeah,
I don't know if-
It's funny.
I think I would either leave you there and just walk to the back.
As long as I'm getting paid, I'm happy to do that.
No, exactly. Listen, if they throw me £100,000,
You do it.
To get knocked out by Jarrell Miller.
no, not for. No.
I just pull a Shakur Stevenson. I just, laps the ring.
No, but
Let
that's
him chase me round for 12 rounds. He'll
Boring.
tire out, and then I'll just, I was going to say I'll do something, but I won't. I won't.
He's another one, ain't he? Shakur Stevenson, Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, that's another potential fight.
That's a fight.
The only one I want to see is Haney versus Jonte Davis. It's the fight that makes sense. It's the two that we say are the best of the best, and so they should fight each other. Like everyone, it's always like, oh, could this person beat Haney? Could this person beat Davies? Could this person beat Haney? Oh, Haney beat this guy, so he's better than Davies. Just fight each other, and then we can say, outright. I think Haney probably wins that fight. I just think he's the better boxer, but there's only one way to find out.
Listen, if they were heavyweight boxers, I think we would see it because
In Saudi.
our Excellency
Well-
would get that fight made, wouldn't he?
Well, they'd on about trying to get it in Saudi, I think, because Steve Bunce was on about it, about them trying to put it in Saudi to get like more of a mainstream boxing audience, picking up the American fighters as well. But
Yeah, because they American both stadium and pay-per-view buys aren't great at the moment
think it's
from what
ju-
I've seen.
it's the
and
price
it's
of
just
it, though, ain't it?
difficult because they tend to be on early hours of the morning. Half the time, people just don't want to stay up from. Whereas if they brought them over to Saudi Arabia, you've got that time zone where you could sort of fit it in for everyone to have a decent time, even though it'll probably be early hours of the morning in sort of America. Like, I don't know what the time difference would be, but
What now? So if it's our time,
if it's Saudi Arabian time
Yeah.
in America, or
it's 5 hours behind the East Coasters.
yeah, so
What
you
behind
watch-
us?
yeah.
So then I think Saudi's a couple hours in front of us.
2 hours.
3 hours in front of
Yeah.
us.
So,
So
so if you put that on at like 7, 8 in Saudi, then you're watching it afternoon time in America. It's
it's a good
decent time for everyone.
Yeah.
Then.
I think what was it? 4 o'clock the day of reckoning started, so that would have been. Trying to do my maths now. 11 o'clock. Yeah, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
US, New York time, and then obviously was it 3 hours minus 3
Yeah.
hours then for the
Yeah, you're still looking
West
at
Coast.
8 in the morning. I know it's an early start.
that's
but
no excuses. I was watching the Nui at 8 o'clock on Boxing Day.
yeah, I'd rather get
Yeah.
up at 8 than have to try and stay
the
up
monster.
Well,
at 3 in the morning.
Moving on to it, we've got the Beterbiev fight. I think it's at like 3:30 in the morning UK time, which is obviously in Canada. And I'm not staying up until 3:30. I'll watch it in the morning. But then that's Weatherspoons isn't open first thing in the morning.
That's
so what
the
can
problem.
I do?
That's the problem.
It's
No.
difficult. But moving on to that one, we can start with the undercard, which is Jason Maloney versus Saul Sanchez. So Jason Maloney goes into the fight 26-2. Saul Sanchez 20-2. It's a bantamweight for the world bantamweight title.
WBO.
Jason Maloney is a Australian fighter, another Australian fighter.
Brother, Sam Hill.
Arguably one of the sort of upcoming nations in boxing at the moment. You've got Japan are doing some big things, but aren't necessarily getting the opportunities outside of Japan. Australians we're seeing and New Zealanders we're seeing sort of starting to make a name for themselves. I mean, I was checking earlier, Jaya Pataya is ranked 3, I think, for the cruiserweight division on BoxRec. I mean, how is he third? Second at absolute lowest. He's one down from Billum Smith. There's no one should be in between those two.
Who's number one?
Billum Smith.
Bellum Smith. Number two
is some guy who's like 40-1. I think he's a Mexican fighter. Or maybe American. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Lawrence Okoli we'll just go with.
Lawrence Okoli's like 5th.
Really?
Richard Riakpor's 6th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think one of the good things since the Zone has started up,
we're seeing a
with
lot
them
more.
putting shows across the world, you're seeing a lot more a mix of sort of fighters from different places. With the Australian, I think they've put on a couple of cards in Australia, haven't they?
They've put one on last year, yeah. I think they're planning on doing one. No, Matchroom are trying to debut now in March in Japan, so
it's Gilberto Ramirez is the number 2.
Ramirez.
Who's 45-1. To be fair, that's quite an impressive record. But Jaya Patai is in 3rd. But I think I was looking at this, and I might be right, and I didn't actually know this. I don't think that Chris Billum Smith lost to Richard Riakpor back in 2019. I forgot that.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And a split decision. So that we talked about.
There's a big rematch then. For
we talked about that fight possibly happening, and I think now even more so, I want that fight to happen because then
we missed the most important point then.
Yeah, maybe we're not perfect. We do our best. We're just students. Let us off. Anyway, we've skipped over it a couple of times. Jason Maloney fighting Saul Sanchez for the WBO World Bantamweight. First, I suppose most importantly, who do you think's going to win?
Maloney for me.
Maloney. Yeah.
Same, yeah.
What was it? 19 KO wins. He's got so much power, and then Sanchez.
And he lost to Inui, I think. It's one of his losses, which again is one of those ones that I said earlier. You just go, fair enough. Like you lost to him, cool.
At least I fought him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many boxers just say that now, don't they? It's an honour to fight. Let's go off topic again. Johnny Fisher. Remember back in August, AJ was meant to be fighting Dillian White. No, was it August or July? Probably around that time, and I think Johnny Fisher was coming out and said it would be an honour to get knocked out by AJ or try to fight him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to hear from boxers, that they're willing to go in there and do it. But
yeah, sometimes you've got I think some fighters know their level, and if they get that chance to step up, it's probably the only time they're ever going to get it, so they may as well take it.
Yeah, so Maloney's lost to Emmanuel Rodriguez, who's the ranked number 1 bantamweight at the moment.
Yeah, he's the IBF champion.
And he lost to Inui, so he comes from some serious pedigree. Sal Sanchez looks like a decent bantamweight, but he hasn't got anywhere near the sort of fight record that
I think Maloney just
does.
Had probably the tougher fights, we're more experienced with the losses against 2 tough fighters. I think he gets through this. I've gone for a points decision, but I think he'll set up. I think the most likely, if he wins, is go against Emmanuel Rodriguez again for that rematch to try and avenge that loss. Obviously,
that's not Bam Rodriguez now, is it?
No.
Okay.
You got WBO,
too many Rodriguez,
an IBF champion, and
he's a flyweight. I think Bam Rodriguez, not a bantamweight. Slightly different.
Both men, looking at this, the Ben's going in front of me. Both men combined have got 31. Oh, as I say that, it's gone down. 31 KOs. So
it'll be a good fight.
It's a decent fight for a co-main event, but I reckon you go for all the underdogs. I'm going to go for an underdog in this, and I reckon Saul Sanchez probably not knocks him out, but finishes him early, like what happened with Ohara Davies at the weekend.
Fair enough.
Normally my predictions are right, so fingers crossed.
And that ends here. I'm gonna think with my head from now on.
Because again,
not my
you
heart.
two against me. Nothing's changed in 2024.
And nor will it. Nor will it. It's just gonna get worse, Harry. It's just gonna get worse. Before you know it, we're gonna lock you out before the start of the podcast. It's going to be the puncher's chance with Harry. With Sam.
Whenever we have a special guest or something now, I'm going to be in the other room talking.
You'll be in the corner behind the monitor, so I don't have to look at you. No. So, also we got the Smith Beterbiev on that, which is a big fight. It's an exciting fight. The heavy sets up for possibly someone to fight against Bivol for the... would that be all the belts? I think it would be, wouldn't it? It would be unified.
It's 3 belts they're going for.
Yeah.
This fight's for 3 belts, and then...
Bivol,
Dimitri Bivol owns the other ones. So obviously Beterbiev as we've mentioned earlier, is a scary fighter. I watched a clip, and I didn't include it because it was quite a long one, and I can't remember who the fighter was that was talking, but he was one of the sparring partners for Beterbiev for one of his previous fights, and he said that they used to, between the 5 or 6 of them, used to take it in turns, and what they'd be like, okay, so you target the body in the first one to slow him down, and then I'll run around the ring in the second one to tire him out, just to give like the third or fourth person a chance, because he was just like a step above the others.
That's just the Russians, though, ain't it? They're mad, aren't they?
Yeah.
When it comes to their training.
Another Rocky villain looking scary guy. Ivan Drago. I remembered the name.
You remember the name,
Ivan
Drago. The most obvious Rocky name as well that we couldn't name.
That I keep forgetting.
He lives in Canada, obviously.
Yeah, because
you don't often get many fights in Canada. I can't think of many times you get.
Not big fights, no.
But,
no.
Another interesting thing about this fight is that what I found was it's just 2 weeks into the new year, and this will be the 5th world title fight.
Wow.
So 2 weeks and 5 world title fights. That's incredible.
It's a busy January, to be fair. You got that this weekend. You got Dan Aziz and his fight next weekend. You got
Mikael Maya, yeah,
and Natasha Jonas at the end of the month.
Yeah.
You got the Misfits.
You got the HS Tiki-Taki.
Well, he's not fighting anymore.
Is he not?
No,
that's a shame.
I believe he's not fighting because there's another opponent they want him to fight on a future Misfits card, and I think it's looking like it's Mini Con versus somebody. I can't remember the name.
It's probably it's that guy from
that's
that
fighting
X Factor boy band or something.
No, I don't think it is him.
Miles. I thought it was Miles. Or was it
knows.
Ashley Raksu?
Yeah, that's the one. Anyway, we'll
Who cares about that? That's not proper boxing. Anyway.
That's a future episodes one. What are our predictions for Callum Smith? Does he have it? Does he have the minerals? You think?
He does it. You have to back the British fighters, don't you? Like, who
Unless
cares
they're going to lose.
Who cares if we get it wrong? He's got a chance. Both men, obviously, as I said earlier, haven't seen the last round at light heavyweight. So, yeah, why not back a British fighter? You know, it's good to see the Brits stepping up and fighting the best. And, yeah, why not upset the party?
Yeah,
with Beterbiev and Bivol.
Probably want to see him win, because then you want to see the British fighters win, but I think he'll win the early rounds. I think he'll try and stay out of range, but I think eventually, and I think just the thing of him not fighting in almost, 18 months, I think, once you start getting caught with shots and slowing down, I think I think Beterbiev's going to win with a late stoppage. That's what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, I think Beterbiev's going to get a sort of mid to late fight stoppage, like 7th, 8th round, that sort of neck of the woods. I just think, Callum Smith, to be fair to him, he's 29-1, and obviously we said that one's against Canelo, so, you know, to go 29 fights without a loss with 29 wins for any fighter is impressive. So I think he has the minerals to beat him, but if we're going for odds and I'm going who I think most likely to win, I think Beterbiev probably is the most likely to win, and then that sets up the Bivol fight, who I think was Bivol's 21-0. So then you got 20-0, 21-0, practically identical records between those two, to fight for the unified, and then possibly one of them move up to cruiserweight division.
This fight as well, mine was meant to happen in 2023 in August, but Beterbiev has had jaw surgery as well, so you have to probably put that in the factor as well. But
I wouldn't be shocked if Callum Smith wins, if he can manage to win enough of the early rounds and then just avoid the power punches towards the end. And cause like
he's an all-rounder, Smith is, in my opinion.
Gonna,
he lands hard straight shots from range, and
I think he's
powerful hooks as well.
He said he's going to try and win it on points, so I think if he can pick up enough of the early rounds, and then just he's going to have to stay out of the way of the power.
If you tried to go toe to toe with someone that's fought 19 times and he's knocked out everyone, then it's not going to be a long night for you, is it?
Yeah,
so if you outbox him, then
watching back Beterbiev, the last fight against Anthony Yard, which
Yard was good.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I think the thing you could notice more than anything is every time, even if Beterbiev was backed into a corner, he was smart enough to be able to switch it so quickly that he caught you in the corner, and then he's just laying all different kinds of combinations at you, and it's gonna weigh you down eventually.
100%. But Callum Smith's last couple of fights, have been against, oh wow, that's a very long name to pronounce, Mattia Bordelic?
That was
Gilbert Castillo, Rivera, and then obviously Saul Alvarez, he lost to Canelo Alvarez. John Ryder. So he's fought some big names. Obviously, George Groves back in 2018.
He's also fought some great names. I mean, Hassam and Jikam. What a name that is.
Are these all in Saudi Arabia as well? Because didn't Callum Smith start this all Saudi Arabia boxing
he was
thing?
one of the first.
His last fight was in Saudi as well, I think.
Was it?
Against...
Yeah, it was. Jeddah Superdome.
Bootleg.
Yeah. What undercard was that on?
AJ
Usyk.
Ruiz.
Really?
Is that the
No.
call? Let's have a look.
was it?
2022.
It
You
was
ready?
Usyk,
It was Usyk AJ,
Yeah.
Hergovic, Zhang, Callum
Yeah.
Smith, and then
Yeah, now obviously then he's beaten George Groves, who was probably one of the best cruiserweight British.
One of the
fighters,
first
yeah.
fights I can remember watching was Groves and Froch.
Oh, when he came out with the big red bus, yeah.
I think Smith is a great fighter, and he stands at 6'3", so he's got the height advantage over Beterbiev as well.
Yeah.
So he has every chance in this fight. Let's not underplay that. It's just obviously who's more likely to win. And I suppose this maybe we're 50 minutes in. We got a little bit of time left on the pod. Possibly a conversation to be had about, are we as Brits guilty of overplaying the level of British fighters, or is it the reverse, that maybe things like BoxRec have a habit of overrating American and other fighters? Because you look at British fighters, and generally speaking, they're not often in the sort of top 10s worldwide. Does the British boxing scene need to get some more credit? Because we've got a lot of people. I mean, you got Sonny Edwards obviously lost, but against an incredible fighter, is number 2 in that division. Anthony Joshua, Chris Bellum-Smith as a cruiserweight, just off the top of my head, Lee Wood. There's a lot of top fighters coming out of Britain, and are we guilty of saying they're too good, or is it the reverse of that?
I think the problem we got is that we're not putting the top British guys against the other top British guys, and then when they go up to world level, they get beat quite easily.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of lately. And you look at this year now, we're actually starting to see now the top dogs in British boxing fighting each other, because then they can at least prove themselves and then say, all right, you're not ready for a world championship fight, but you are, so you go up and fight whoever and then try and win. But I think, what was it, Sonny Edwards went over to Phoenix, Arizona, and I think we all backed him to win, but at the end of the night, it was quite an easy night for Bam Rodriguez, wasn't it? So I think that there needs to change there, where
it's a difficult one.
British fighters have that extra fight against a top level British opponent, and then you move on to a world championship fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with UK media sometimes it does.
They big up the fights too much.
They big up fighters too often. You see a bit like AJ, you've seen it.
It's in
the past with people
in any sports they're bigging up.
Yeah.
The darts recently, Luke Littler, sensation, 17-year-old, nearly 17-year-old.
Your best mate.
Yeah, and the other thing I found out as well on Wikipedia when I was looking at it, like what tournaments he's won, he was born on the same day as me, the 21st of January.
Was he? Well, there you go.
I can't believe it.
A great day for darts, that was.
It was a
21st
great
of
day
January.
for darts.
I think. Didn't he win? Was it the Welsh Open he won?
He did win the Welsh
famously?
Open, yeah. He's gone from playing in Prestatyn in a Pontins. If any of you been to a Pontins, it is unbelievable. Would highly recommend.
Welsh Butlands, basically, isn't it?
5-star hotels. If you haven't been there, go there. I recommend it. And listen, we big them up. They deserve to be bigged up. But there comes a time where in an individual sport, it's only them that can do it.
Yeah.
And when they lose the confidence, we've seen that with AJ. He lost confidence after Usyk. He was carrying the back of British boxing, wasn't he, on his back for so many years, and then against Usyk that second time round, he just lost it, didn't he, and started throwing a tantrum and all. But can't blame the man. The media's building you up, and when you lose, you're obviously going to be mortified, and we're seeing that quite a lot now. And I think going back to Luke Littler, he's just incredible, ain't he? 16 years old and doing what he's doing, bagging himself, 200 grand, and then the tax man comes along and says, hang on a minute, you owe me £80,000, so it's unbelievable.
It's not a bad bad week's wages for a 16-year-old.
It's not bad. It's not quite minimum wage.
Manager takes 50% as well, so
It's,
it's unbelievable for 16 as well to earn. What was it? £75,000 from that tournament. It's probably incredible.
I think it reminds me. I don't know if you guys have seen the clip, just to sort of round it back to boxing. Of
They're saying a dart.
no, I'm not. It's not as a bad thing. Just it reminded me of it when Mike Tyson fought as a 15-year-old fought a man, and just everyone was thinking, oh yeah, he's big, he's good, but he's 15, and he just absolutely battered him. I think it was a first round knockout. I think it was, and it does have shades of that, of where you go, does the age really matter if they are just that good? Should they be being put up against some of the best if they are just that good? You don't see it often in boxing because obviously it's such a physical sport, which, no hate to darts players, it's not quite such a physical sport.
No. Darts is more that anyone, you can play at any age. 60 years old, you can play someone who's 25 in their prime and still beat them.
Yeah.
But
I think with sport, if you're good enough to play at that level, you're old enough, really. You've seen it in all different sports. Like you said with Mike Tyson with boxing, Luke Littler now.
There's so much as well in football as well. There's so many names coming through as well.
Wayne Rooney when he was 16, like
Tom Daley, 14,
I think
in the London Olympics.
Yeah, you see that. I saw that stat on Sky. Yeah,
you also have an importance, I think, to they
protect
still
him
have
as well.
I'm
I'm quite surprised that they've put him in. Going back to Luke Littler, obviously this is a boxing podcast, but I'm quite surprised that they've put Luke Littler in the Premier League, and they're going to put him probably in the World Series. So he's not going to be home now. He's going to be Monday, Tuesday. He's going to be doing Pro Tours. Wednesday's got qualifiers for other tournaments within the PDC. So his life is pretty much now darts. And if something goes wrong in darts, and I don't know if you know about this, but you can get the yips in darts where you can't release the dart. If something goes wrong like that, he has nothing then. And when he loses confidence, it could be over for him. But no, I reckon Luke Littler's going to win quite a few majors this year. I'm going to say a handful. But yeah, going back to boxing. Let's get back to boxing, actually.
Yeah, I think. Well, the media do have a duty to protect sports stars to a degree, which they don't necessarily do.
But they have a duty to get their name out there as well, haven't they?
Yeah, and another someone else who has a duty to protect, and we'll finish up on this talking point, is the fight that happened on the undercard of Ohara Davies Ismail Barroso, which
No, it was the main event.
Was it the main event? Was it?
Yeah.
And obviously there was a stoppage in the I can't remember what round the stoppage is in actually, but the stoppage happened, and the referee has come out and said that there was 2 tests before the fight that said he had an aneurysm, and then the third one said he didn't, and the fight went on, which is why he stopped the fight. So obviously we won't get into it in too much detail, but first of all, do you think necessarily that the fight should have gone on at all? And if it did go on and was sanctioned, should the referee have done what he did or not?
It's the Las
He
Vegas.
shouldn't even have let him get in there,
No.
really, should he?
But is this the Las Vegas boxing board that obviously sanctioned the fight, saying that we want to see Virgil Ortiz Jr. back in there, so you're going to fight no matter what? What was it? He was getting tested, and he tested twice for it. It came up, and then the last test that he did, he was negative. So maybe they did something in that test. But yeah, someone with aneurysm.
Yeah,
he shouldn't be fighting. Like,
it shouldn't be in the other ring.
You shouldn't have a referee as well coming out. The boxing board of Nevada shouldn't be allowing a referee to come out and defending himself. Tony Weeks is probably he's up there with one of the best referees in the world. He shouldn't be coming out and publicly saying, all right, the stoppage was bad, but I know something that you don't, and it's not good for boxing.
Yeah, I
is it,
suppose when you
hear
got
stories
that
like this?
in your head, like, you could have been thinking at that time, if he gets hit with a big shot,
It's his fault as well, ain't it?
He might not get back up, and then
The referee
if it comes out that if he gets hit with a big shot, doesn't get back up, and then all this comes out, people are gonna look at the ref, Tony Weeks, and be like, why have you let it go that far? No win, what you know. So
yeah, I think ultimately we all stand with the fact that the fight shouldn't have been going on in the first place. I don't care how much money is involved, how many people are involved. If a fighter has something like that, the fight should not be going on. And I imagine he'll be Lawson will be quite irritated by the fact that the fight was stopped. There's a loss on his record, but it could be the difference between life and death. Ultimately,
Exactly.
he'll be annoyed that the fight either shouldn't have gone on, so it wouldn't have been a loss on his record, or the referee should have pretended it didn't exist because it didn't. It was proven not to, allegedly. But yeah, ultimately, it was just it's a bizarre situation that really shouldn't have happened at all, and the fact that Weeks has had to come out and defend himself for possibly saving someone's life is
I think
crazy.
at the end of the day, the health of the fighter is most important. Even the loss on the record isn't going to matter in terms of the bigger picture of as long as he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure he'd rather take the loss on the record rather than go through a slog of a fight and end up with serious health problems in what could have been just after the fight or in a few years' time down the road. It's like, I know you've got the money and everything surrounding it, but there's only so much money you can do for you, really. But, if you're seriously injured like that, it's not worth nothing then, is it?
But another doctor came in. I'm just reading it. Another doctor.
Yeah,
so they
so
really
they've
wanted this
obviously-
fight to go ahead, didn't they?
Yeah.
It looks like a cover-up, doesn't it, really?
Does a little bit, yeah. It's
But is that Nevada, as I keep saying, is that Nevada boxing board being, they're quite controversial. They got Conor Benn fighting in a couple of weeks' time. He
got that
is
after-
past. Jerome Miller, he went under the Nevada boxing control for his fight against Dubois, so...
Yeah, with Ben, who waited weeks, I think, with Eddie Hearn, how many times he said, this week...
Every interview I had with Eddie Hearn for 3 weeks,
he was
Eubank
adamant.
Jr. fight will be announced next week.
And it just...
And
obviously
we
he's
won't,
fighting in
it would
America
never
again.
happen now, I don't think,
It
in my
doesn't
opinion.
look as if it's going to happen because, I don't know whether they are saying it's an argument over money, but
His
I don't know
weight
whether it's...
as well, I reckon.
Eubank probably wants the fight to be in the UK, and
Yeah.
he's not going to be able to fight in the UK because he can't clear his name, so it's a difficult one. And as much as I'd still like to see it happen, just because it's a good domestic fight to watch. Obviously, it's got the history with the family history and everything, but
Put his dad and put Eubank Senior and Conor Benn, Nigel Benn on the undercard in an exhibition, like Roy
That'd be
Jones
unreal.
Jr. and Mike Tyson back in COVID. That'd be quite good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so bad from the Nevada boxing control, but they're no Texas. Let's be real here. We know where the best boxing association
The
in
winner
America.
of that fight was from Texas again, so
True,
the best state
true.
in America.
I don't know about that. That's maybe
What's
a
the
bit of a
best state in
stretch.
America?
I'm gonna go
Florida, I'm gonna go.
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah, why not? Why not Hawaii?
I've never been to America, so I wouldn't know. But
one out.
Hawaii's a good show to be
South Dakota,
Florida.
South Dakota, yeah.
Something's always going
Ohio.
on in Florida, so
home of the Pauls.
Home of the Pauls, yeah.
Alaska. Oh, Alaska's a good show. I like Alaska.
Have you seen that guy on TikTok, the Alaska guy that goes outdoors a lot, camping and everything? No?
Oh, I haven't.
Okay.
Is there an Alaska Board Boxing Federation?
Probably.
That would be unreal. Just like
Alaskan boxing.
It's quite
sanction
funny.
two
If there's a
mooses
massive fight in
scrapping.
Alaska, we'll be going instead of going to Saudi Arabia, probably, won't we?
I'll
Probably
fork
work
out
out
my
cheaper.
life savings to go to Alaska,
Alaska.
to watch some
Well,
guy
we need
fight
to
a
plan a
moose.
business trip. We got
Yeah.
a business trip to plan after this
What was
podcast.
what was the holiday thing up the 5-star hotels in the north of Wales you were talking about?
Pontins. I'm sure they'll have a couple of them in Alaska.
Pontins, if you're listening, sponsor the podcast. Get us out to Riyadh to watch. Possibly, he's not Cordina, is he not possibly fighting
No, he's on the Fury Usyk.
Well, I think if,
in Saudi though? So if they get us out to watch,
Listen, if there's more than one Welsh guy on the card, then we have to do something. We have to try and work our way out of going over
Pontins,
there.
make it happen.
Gavin Gwynn as
if
well.
it's on the zone and you've got like a best mate at the zone,
I know, this
that's
is
50%
unbelievable.
off.
I'm about to get your login details after this.
Maybe
as well.
we can we'll phone him back up and see if he's got any space on the plane.
Just
with-
keep phoning them back. Just like no, that's not, you're not the guy. Put me on to the next
Yeah.
guy until the right guy.
Where's
see if
James?
he's got
Give me
Eddie
James.
Hearn's
I
number.
didn't even take his name.
You didn't even take his name.
I didn't take his name. I'm a
that's
dreadful
the first
journalist.
thing you do.
Horrendous
You got it for
journalism.
$6.99.
Yeah.
Me and Ben will get it for $3.99 or something, won't we?
Hopefully he listens to this now and calls you back and like, oh yeah, I can.
He calls you up and says, "Yeah, I've cancelled your subscription. You've been blocked from the zone."
You've got me sacked.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Shit, yeah. Sorry, bud. Never mind. Anyway, I didn't name him. He'll be fine.
Well, it's
Anyway.
James. We'll call him James. Whoever works at the zone, call
James.
Yeah,
And on
we'll put him
that
in the map.
note, if you're watching the podcast like James was on Spotify, then you can check us out on YouTube or check out our Twitter where we post all the updates on the fights. Some Harry does fight previews, all of that. If you're listening on
My
Spotify,
first shout out.
you can watch our last episode on YouTube with videos. You can see what we look like. If you like Miller Want to Kill Us, then you now know who to look out for. And thank you all for listening. You as well, James. And we'll catch you all in the next episode.